What for to live? What for I was doing those risking everything to run away, to do different things, to be alive, and to come to Warsaw and see I haven't got nobody left. So what for?
I was a young boy when the war started. My family, I was the only child.
We were taken away. First we went to a Gestapo headquarters in Bratislava, and then they sent us to a place called Serry, which was a camp where they collected all the Slovak Jews until they sent them to other camps.
We had to go to my auntie, which were living in the ghetto in Novolipki Street. Very small flat, 2-bedroom flat. And the relations, mostly, which were thrown out, you know, from these houses, all came there. There was too crowded, 2 bedrooms. And I remember I stayed there for about 2-3 days, and we were sleeping on the floor.
My sister, she went out in '43 from the ghetto. She was in Warsaw ghetto with my mother. And she went out and was going to place to place, and she couldn't find a place to live.
I was walking on Monday early in the morning to bombs. That's when the war broke out. The Germans came in the following Friday, and I was crying, and my father came to soothe me and said, don't cry, child. It's a war, but it won't last more than a few days, a few weeks. We'll go back to Kobna to Mommy.
I just cannot believe it when I think of it. About dreaming? I'm not, because I wouldn't be here. To all accounts, I had absolutely no right to be alive today. I had no chance.
As for the extended family, it was in my city. Most of the uncles and aunties lived in my city.
There was a transport going to other camps, and we had to line up. And there were a couple of SS men sort of pointing people to one side or the other. And when it was our turn, they asked my father about my brother, is he a strong boy? And my father said, no, he's not.
When we came to Auschwitz, you heard probably the name Mengele. He said left, right, left, right. He took my mother and her little sister to the left. He left me and my sister to the right.
We were separated when we left Auschwitz. They had to stay, and they went straight into the gas, I believe, or very soon after.
My poor father, he came with me from Maszelsk to Warsaw. In Warsaw, the last papers I had to collect before I travelled. And then he got off the train, and I went on to the Polish port. And I can still remember the tears in his eyes. He left a 15-year-old by herself on the train.
My mother, when she dropped me off at the train station, she said goodbye to me. That's the last time I saw her.
My father disappeared. Then my mother was taken away, and my sister and myself, who were left in the flat where we lived by ourselves. We had nowhere to go.
So she came over to this lady, to our neighbor, and she told her, please tell my father or my sisters, whoever comes back from Russia, that I tried, and I had to go back to the ghetto.
My mother's family were exterminated in Auschwitz in September '42. I was 7.
My parents were hiding because they think that that's a good idea. They came with dogs and they took them all over. They would talk my family, my mother, the father, and my middle brother.
My father got up with his nephew. They had a noise in the corridor. And then opened the door, and they were standing with rifles. Aus, aus, aus. I held onto his hand and I said, Daddy, Daddy, don't leave me. I don't know anybody. Don't leave me. He said, go on, child. They don't want you. Nothing will happen to you. You only want men. And they took them away. I never saw him again.
I was always the sicky one at home. My sister in Auschwitz, she used to do that to me, that I get a bit of color, that they don't take me away.
It was something that you didn't really know what was the right thing to say. And as it so happened, he saved his life by saying that.
I went up to the 2 floors to see my little friend or parents. His name was Arno in short, and I knocked at the door. And as the mother opened the door, I heard this booming male voice. I didn't see it, it was behind the door, telling her, shut it, tell him to go, it is too dangerous, tell him to go away, don't let them in.
We found ourselves living in a hole dug out of the ground in the fields behind the farmhouse, the hole the size of a grave.
My brother, my mother and I were sent to Theresienstadt, and my father was sent to Bergen-Belsen, where he perished. He never came back.
I was from the lucky one, because maybe that's just luck. I was chosen for work.
I became very sick, and my parents made a decision that if we didn't get out of there, I would not survive. So we walked to the nearest village, and we walked into the police station and said, we're Jews, we're here to give ourselves up.
After Auschwitz, they sent us to Stutthof. Have you heard about Stutthof? No. When we came to Stutthof, that was a concentration camp, but nobody worked, just waiting.
I lost all the family in 1942, and I say the family is the extended family, the uncles, the aunties, the cousins. They were taken to Treblinka.
We were processed and sent to a collection camp. There we were separated, and a few days later, Mum and I were put on a transport.
My father knew very well, was very, how you say, clever man. He knew what's happening. So he knew that they take him, all of them, to death.
And it was another selection. They took my sister away, they left me. They took her away to work, they left me to die. She didn't survive.
My mother had a little package. What she had, the jewelry, it is always still holding with her. So she took the jewelry with her and tried to go out. So the German fellow stopped her, you know, and tried to take it out from her. She wouldn't let it go, but he took it and he pushed her away, and she fell. She broke, I don't know, took her to hospital. I never saw her back again. And as soon the mother goes, everybody goes their own way.
My mother was very badly affected by the Holocaust. She was seriously damaged.
My husband was in a few concentration camps, and he really suffered a lot. And he often had nightmares. He used to scream in his sleep quite often, and he suffered a little bit from depression occasionally.
I looked for her when I was still in Belsen. I looked everywhere. She was on no list, not for the dead and not for the living.
My father was with me in Buchenwald till February 1945. They took him away in 1945. They took him, which was called at the time Kommando Reglitz.
My husband was the youngest one in the family. 2 years before me, he came to Auschwitz. He was building it. He had two brothers. One passed away, and the oldest one, they hanged there because they bribed the German men. They wanted to run away, and he topped them in.
The Germans walked in on Friday. They burned the shul alive, 2,000 people. So by that time, everybody had understood what the Germans meant.
I went to the camp when it was the liquidation from Bialystok. I had a fiancé. We come to Majdanek together, but I was lucky. I went in other camps, but he didn't survive.
We had to lose our identity. We had to convert to Catholicism because we were threatened that if we didn't convert, our parents will not survive the war.
She lost 4 sisters and her parents. And from a very privileged lifestyle, she came to eventually to relatively humble.
When I came home and I didn't find anyone, so I was desperate. I was going to take my life. I was going to suicide.
After the liberation, I went to France, and the Jewish organizations looked after me. Somebody rang me and told me if I want to know how my father died, because she was with my father. I said, oh.
Never forget it. Never, ever, ever. Okay. Being a parent later on in Warsaw, to leave a young girl like that, 12,000 miles or whatever it was from Poland.
Afterwards, one always regrets that that I wasn't different. My relationship with my mother was difficult, and I wish it had been otherwise.
I lost my mother. I was desperate.
My father was shot in ghetto by the Germans. Terrible. I see him in the dreams and I feel terrible. He was a very good man, a wonderful father. So I lost my father.
I said, yes, just tell me. He said, the barracks where they were sleeping was quite a distance away from the factory. And they were marching in the evening to the sleeping quarters, and in the morning back to the factory. And those that couldn't march fast enough, they were left in the back, were shot. He said, do you want me to come and talk to you? I said, no, that's enough.